Ghostlight review. What happens when a guilt-ridden father tries to lower the burden of his son's suicide while dealing with an emotionally explosive teenage daughter? The June 2024 release of Ghostlight follows the story of Dan, a blue-collar construction worker living in Chicago, as he navigates through the loss of his 18-year-old son while trying to keep his family from falling apart while being plagued with financial and legal troubles. The movie is directed by Kelly O'Sullivan and Alex Thompson, with O'Sullivan also providing the screenplay. This comedy drama stars Keith Kupferer, Dolly De Leon, and Katherine Mallen Kupferer, among others. Ghostlight had its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2024, with an instant hit among fans for its captivating story and emotional appeal. Dan Mueller, a construction worker struggling to get by, mourns the loss of his son Brian, who lost his life due to suicide. At the same time, Dan tries to discipline his teenage daughter, Daisy, who has resorted to emotional outbursts as her way of showing disdain and grief, and has gotten in trouble at school for shoving a teacher. Dan resorts to heavy drinking while off his job and spends nights sitting on his couch thinking about what he could have done to prevent things from happening the way they did. At the same time, he files a wrongful death lawsuit against Christine Hawthorne, Brian's girlfriend. Sometime later, Rita, an actor at a community theater across the street, witnesses Dan assaulting a rude motorist on the job due to his stress. She invites him to perform as Lord Capulet at their upcoming Romeo and Juliet production. He seeks advice from Daisy, a former actor who has lost interest in theater. But things get tense when his wife Sharon, a teacher and theater director at the local school, tries to build a garden over the site of Brian's suicide in their garden, but he lashes out at Daisy for walking over it. He returns to the theater feeling the weight of recent events. On stage, Rita, who plays Juliet, slaps the actor playing Romeo after he mocks her for being too old for the role. The tension is apparent when they portray Romeo and Juliet's tragic suicides. With a heavy heart, he tells the cast of Brian's suicide. Outside the theater, Daisy and Sharon notice Rita hugging him, seeking support in their shared grief. Dan starts to lie about his whereabouts at home and starts devoting more and more time to the theater. After having trouble finding someone to perform as Romeo, Rita and the cast eventually decide on Dan, who declines at first due to not being able to act properly, but Rita eventually convinces him to settle into the role anyway. Rita and Dan start to get more comfortable with each other and kiss, right as Daisy walks in. She's been following her dad and accuses him of cheating on her mother with Rita and another woman who works at the play or as the play director. She learns of the play and quickly bonds with the cast, eventually becoming part of the cast herself, portraying Mercurio. When they arrive back home, Sharon accuses Dan of cheating on her after learning from his coworker that he is on leave and he has not shown up to work for several days, forcing him to confess the truth. Moved by his talent, Sharon allows the cast to perform at the school's gym. They decide to make the play a one-night event. As the play draws closer, things begin to normalize in the Mueller family, and they go to a fair where they have a good time after a long time. On his way to the toilets, Dan runs into Christine, who profusely apologizes to him and asks to see Sharon. Dan refuses, and Christine hands him a stuffed animal to give to Daisy. Back at the theater, preparations are in full swing. As one of the final rehearsals for the play, Dan hesitates on acting out Romeo's suicide as it reminds him of Brian. Rita and Daisy inspire him to think like Romeo in order to get into character. This prompts Dan to get in the mental state of a suicide victim. On the day of the deposition, Dan finally explains the nature of Brian's death. Christine and Brian hit it off in high school and were instantly obsessed with each other. When Christine's family wanted to move to another state, Brian wanted to tag along, but didn't get the permission from Dan and Sharon. Fearing that they may never see each other again, Brian and Christine plan a suicide by overdosing on prescription drugs. As the couple lie lifeless in the Mueller's yard, paramedics arrive and perform CPR, where Christine clings back to life, but Brian dies. Dan explains and blames Christine's parents for not keeping the drugs in check and Christine for providing them to his son. But he soon realizes that he blames himself instead of Christine and admits that she's not the one at fault, and she is as much of a victim as Brian. Brian's gesture tanks the lawsuit and causes Sharon to have a violent breakdown for wasting their money and time and denying her and Daisy the right to properly mourn their loss. The gymnasium becomes jam-packed at the night of the performance. The cast begin their performance, which goes perfectly without any issues. At the last moment, Dan and Rita bring Sharon to tears. As Romeo passes away, Dan glimpses at Brian in the shadows off stage. Following the show, the Muellers share a hug, go to the cast party, and head back home as a family in the process of healing. Ghostlight accurately captures the the grief that people face due to the unexpected death of their loved one, and how everyone has a different way of processing that grief. Some channel it into anger, some into frustration, and some try to be strong in order to keep others from falling apart. Dan's character is portrayed as someone who is certainly not the perfect father, but is doing the best to keep his family intact. The film also focuses on the message of not letting your emotions bottle up inside you, because that can cause hysteria, anger issues, and other conditions of the sort. It emphasizes on the importance for safe space for someone to let their emotions out without the fear of judgment. The movie also relates the deaths of Romeo and Brian in a poetic sense to almost urge viewers to delve deeper into the minds of suicide victims and those who attempt, feeling trapped with nowhere else to go but the embrace of death itself. The direction was immaculate, with each scene being better than the last to retain viewer attention. However, the movie lacked in the acting area, especially where Dan described Brian's death with no proper sadness on his face. His emotions were rather those of disgust and annoyance. Now that may be intentional, but it was off-putting nonetheless. At the same time, concepts such as layered storytelling and interwoven plots, Rita's theater and everyone in it coercing for the legal battle with the Muellers were in, is what made the movie one of the better releases of the year. Overall, the movie was incredibly emotionally appealing and thought-provoking. The cinematography in this movie is outstanding. The lighting transitions from warm and emotional and flashbacks to bitter and stark and present-day moments, mirroring Dan's feelings while also contemplating the scenes. The color palette consists of mostly dark and warm colors in key scenes, such as Brian's flashbacks, while some scenes, such as the play, really bring out the color, with the characters having bright costumes. The visuals play a key role in enhancing the overall storytelling. The soundtrack of Ghostlight adds an emotional depth to the film. While there's not a great amount of music in the movie, what is present really draws the viewers deeper into the world and sells the plot even further, connecting the silver screen to the hearts of the people watching. Overall, the visuals of the movie were greatly enhanced by clever soundtrack placement from the post-production team. The film received overall positive reviews from fans and critics alike, mainly due to the complexity of the story and the strong emotional appeal presented by the movie. On the review website Rotten Tomatoes, 100% of 68 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 8.10 out of 10. The website's consensus reads, "A small film that elicits a huge emotional response. Ghostlight is a deeply moving and superbly acted mediation on grief." Metacritic gave the film a score of 83 out of 100 based on 21 critics. Matt Zoller-Zeltz of RogerEbert.com wrote that the film tests your patience eerily, but becomes powerful as it goes along. Some of the elements that might inherently seem odd because of the source of great strength of the movie as a drama. Vulture.com called Ghostlight the best film that came out this year. The film won second place for the Golden Space Needle Award. Directors O'Sullivan and Thompson won the Audience Award for Best Directors, and Keith Kupferer won Best Performance at the Seattle International Film Festival. Overall, the movie is an extremely emotional experience. It takes you on a roller coaster of feelings, such as grief, denial, rage, acceptance, sorrow, and whatnot, with a touch of comedy here and there to lighten up the mood a little bit. Dan's journey from a stoic, violent father who's unable to cope with such a big loss to a compassionate, understanding man is phenomenal and elicits a warm feeling within the chest. So this movie definitely deserves a spot on your watch list this summer. And that's it. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel to watch the latest and exclusive movie reviews. If you have any requests, thoughts, or recommendations for movie reviews, just drop them below in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.